Behold, a gateway to Brick's past. I am not the Guardian of Forever. I'm just Joe, but today we're going to look at some brick building sets from a few years ago. These are going to be all Mega Bloks sets to celebrate 50 years of Star Trek. So these were all released in 2016. And what I'm showing you today are fairly unique because none of them are actual ships. These will be scenes from famous episodes of Star Trek: The Original Series. And since we're looking back in time a little bit, it's only appropriate that I start with this first set, which is The Guardian of Forever, from one of the most famous episodes of Star Trek called The City on the Edge of Forever, where the Enterprise comes upon a planet where they're encountering turbulence because of time distortions everywhere. And because of the turbulence, McCoy accidentally injects himself with a dangerous drug and temporarily goes insane and beams down to the planet. Kirk and Spock and some of the crew also beam down to the planet, and they find this structure, which actually lights up and speaks in the show and identifies itself as the Guardian of Forever. Or to put it more simply, it's a gateway to other times. And in the episode, because McCoy's insane, he jumps through at a random point in history, which just happens to be Great Depression era New York, and manages to change history, so he erases the Enterprise from existence. So Kirk and Spock also jump through the gateway, stop McCoy from whatever he did, and set history back on its regular course. And here is the Mega Bloks version of the Guardian of Forever, which really is just a rock formation that is hollow in the middle. It's kind of, an oval shape, and I think this captures it as well as anything. Plus, surrounding the Guardian here are some ruins, like broken columns or something you might find from ancient Rome or Greece. So there's really not much to this set. The pieces are rather interesting because these are non-standard colors, just about all of them. Like this plate here is some type of speckled tan. We've got the pearl gray here for most of the rock formation, and then we've got this opalescent, I don't know, I'd almost call it trans white here, just mixed in, which I think is supposed to represent how the Guardian actually lights up. And then we've got some suggestion of ruins here in the front. And these 2x2 bricks here, these are interesting because if you look closely, those are actually rounded. They're not sharp corners. It's almost like these bricks had been sanded off. It's a very odd shape to me. So there's not a whole lot to build in this set. This is much more about the minifigures, which are one of the most collectible features of the Mega Bloks sets that were released for the 50th anniversary. Mega Bloks actually released 6 sets total. We've already seen one, which was the Giant Enterprise. All of them include at least one minifigure, and I don't believe any minifigures are repeated throughout the 6 sets. So I'll start here with Captain Kirk, who is in his gold uniform. And when I mentioned that no minifigure is repeated, like the Enterprise had a Captain Kirk, but he was in the dress uniform. And Kirk here has a communicator. And here we have Dr. McCoy, who was, of course, integral to the episode. And he's holding a tricorder, a regular tricorder, which we would assume has the medical tricorder inside it. And while he did not carry this down to the planet where the Guardian of Forever was, he was probably carrying it when he was on the bridge and had the accident where he injected himself with the drug. And here we've got 2 security guards who also beamed down with the landing party in the City on the Edge of Forever. I don't know if it's 2 guards that look like this, but it's always good to have some red shirts so that you have some guys who can get killed. Although, to be fair, City on the Edge of Forever was from season 1, and it wasn't until season 2 when Star Trek started killing off guys in red shirts on the regular. And both of these guys have phasers, and this guy here, even though when I got this set, it was still sealed in the box, but his face was covered with some type of, I don't know, white powder. And you can still see a little bit of it here that I wasn't able to wipe off. Of course, I didn't thoroughly clean him off. So I thought that was strange, but it's also a reminder that new and sealed doesn't necessarily mean mint condition. Next up is a set that's dedicated to the episode Day of the Dove. And if you thought the previous set didn't have much to it, all we have here is one little section of what I believe is the engineering section of the Enterprise. and it does have some printed pieces, but there's not much there. But this set is all about the minifigures. And here we've got 2 Klingons, and we have Scotty and Chekhov from the original cast. And here they're holding swords, which seems odd for Star Trek, because you would think they'd be holding phasers. In the episode Day of the Dove, both the Enterprise and a Klingon ship are responding to a distress signal, and eventually both crews end up trapped on the Enterprise, and they later discover that a malevolent entity comes aboard with them and forces them to fight each other for its own nourishment. No matter what, neither side can ever get the upper hand on the other, but the entity always makes sure that they hate each other. And to make sure the sides remain even and nobody gets killed, the entity actually changes all their phasers to sword. And no matter how badly someone gets wounded, the person always survives. And the end of the episode does take place in the engineering section, so I imagine this is why we've got this one engineering panel as our backdrop. But I'll start here with Chekhov. This is the only Chekhov minifigure in any of these sets. And since I didn't point it out the first time, I should point out that all the minifigures come with this gold disc for them to stand on, because there's not much place for them to stand on in the set. And these figures actually have a lot of posability, because you can bend the knees, you can bend the elbows, you can rotate the arms everywhere. You can rotate the head. I know this is hard to see because I'm reaching around the tripod to try and show you everything these guys can do. So there's a lot of posability to these figures, and I don't think they pose any threat to Lego and their minifigure patent. They even turn at the waist some. And then we have Scotty here. He's got the red shirt. He's the one red shirt who seems to be able to survive no matter what. And this was a season 3 episode, so red shirts were definitely in danger at this point. Then next we have Kang, who is the captain of the Klingon vessel, and is a very unique character in Star Trek, as Kang also appears in Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And I haven't been able to confirm this, but I believe that makes Kang the only character to only appear in original series Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And finally, we just have another Klingon. He doesn't have a name. But one fun fact about Day of the Dove was the first episode to show a female Klingon, and the only episode of the original series to have a Klingon woman. And if you really want to stage an episode-accurate scene, I did find one little section of Day of the Dove that actually shows this particular engineering panel in the background. And the final set I'm going to show today is the transporter room from the USS Enterprise. And of course, the transporter room is where people go from the ship to other ships or to planets, because special effects were too expensive in the 1960s to show shuttles going everywhere, so the transporter was invented. In the show, up to 6 people could transport. There were 6 pads, and we have 6 pads here in this transporter room, although we've only got 5 tops there, but that's not terribly important. Plus, we've also got this control panel, which swivels for some reason. I'm not sure that it needs to. I'm sure it didn't in the show. But it has some good printed parts here to give detail to the transporter controls. We've also got a picture here of space on the side, which is also printed. And I did find one picture online that shows a similar picture in the transporter room. This set is built interestingly because you actually build each little section here one at a time, and then you just fold it together. There's nothing holding it together once you fold it up like this. But it is interesting to me, though, that it actually has you build all these trans orange pieces to the side in between each section, just to give it that much more detail underneath. I don't know how necessary that was, but it is interesting that it was included. However, you should be warned that if you transport during an ion storm, you could accidentally transport yourself to the mirror universe. This set was made to represent the episode Mirror Mirror, which is one of the most famous episodes of Star Trek the original series, where, because of a transporter accident, Captain Kirk and McCoy, Scotty, and Uhura accidentally get beamed into a parallel universe where everyone on the Enterprise is evil. And instead of being part of the United Federation of Planets, the Enterprise is part of the ISS, which is the Terran Empire as represented by the Earth with the giant sword going through it. And since this is a Mirror Universe set, we have Mirror Universe figures. Starting here with Captain Kirk, this time in Mirror Universe uniform. He's holding a phaser. He's also wearing the sash, which is standard for the Terran Empire. And there are little slots here on the side. It's hard to see, but that is for holding knives, if you so choose. And Spock here, one of the most famous aspects of the Mirror Universe is Spock has a goatee. And often because of that episode, whenever somebody has to play an evil version of themselves on TV or in a movie, they're often shown wearing a goatee of some sort. Spock here is holding a phaser, and he actually has a knife to go into the side of his sash. And he also has Mirror Universe uniform on with the Terran logo here on his right chest front and various other medals here. And then we have a very interesting minifigure, and this is Scotty, but it's actually Scotty mid-transport, which is why he's partially translucent. And even the knife that he's carrying is translucent, as is the sash. So he is actually made so that you could place him on one of the transporter pads and show that he's being beamed into the Enterprise. Although in the episode Mirror Mirror, Kirk, Scotty, Uhura, and McCoy are actually the Prime Universe characters who end up in the Mirror Universe, whereas Spock is an actual Mirror Universe character. The Mirror Universe would not be visited again until Deep Space Nine, where it actually became a regular contributor to the show. Then there was a one-off two-part episode of Enterprise in the Mirror Universe, and then the Mirror Universe played a very significant role in Star Trek Discovery's first season. So all in all, between these three sets, we have a pretty good representation of Star Trek the original series. In fact, we've got one set for each of the three seasons, Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3. The only set of the Mega Bloks series that I'm missing is the set of the Bridge, which is just prohibitively expensive and contains all of the missing minifigures, which would be Kirk in the green tunic, Spock in a regular blue uniform, and Uhura and Sulu, who don't appear in any other sets. Plus, there's one more Mega Bloks set, which will probably be in the next Star Trek video I do. But I have 5 of the 6 sets from the 50th anniversary, and I'm really glad I have these 3. And I thank you for joining me for celebrating the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, even if it's almost the 60th anniversary. I still have several more Star Trek sets to show off, so I'll be working on those. But until then, remember, today is a good day to build.